On Friday, I know the Minneapolis Stadium Implementation Committee unanimously approved the stadium plan, and next up is to finalize an agreement with the state. But that negotiation is being delayed by the Metropolitan Sports Facilities Authority as they take a second look at Viking owners' financial ability to pay for the stadium. What is the timetable to get the process done, and should Viking fans be at all concerned on the state delaying or reneging on their agreement?
No, I don't believe there's any real reason for concern. I think what the Stadium Authority has embarked upon is probably a legitimate inquiry that based on some very harsh comments by a judge in New Jersey stemming from a business dispute that goes back more than 20 years and survived 4 different judges, and essentially a business dispute between business partners. The Wilfs have had hundreds, if not thousands, of business partnerships throughout this country in their real estate development business, and this was one that went bad, as happens in business disputes. One party decided to sue the other party, which was sort of normal course of business to a degree, but then what really, I think, got attention to people in Minnesota was when the judge made some fairly harsh comment about the Wilfs and their business, and that set in motion these events where the Stadium Authority felt like they should do some additional due diligence, some additional review and research on the Wilfs' ability to finance their commitment, their portion of the deal, and especially in relation to the lawsuit, if the lawsuit, which is still ongoing and will be, as far as I can tell, ongoing for a while, that there was a question as to if there was a judgment of financial damages, would that impact the Wilfs' ability to finance their deal? And I think what the Stadium Authority has found out as this process has gone forward is that the Wilfs do have the ability, regardless of what happens in the New Jersey lawsuit, the Wilfs have the ability to meet their obligations, and this project's going to move forward, and we're very excited about that. Now, we haven't gotten the formal final stamp of approval from the authority, but there's a lot of work that's going forward. The Vikings did set aside, as you referenced in your question, these negotiations on the fundamental partnership agreements, and they are the lease or the use agreement and the development agreement, which governs the construction process. 2 very important documents that they're partnership agreements, and we felt that until we're at the table as partners, until this cloud is cleared up over the Wilfs' financial ability to meet their obligations, we've said let's set aside that issue. But at the same time, we have moved forward aggressively on the design and construction process. That's on track. We've moved forward on the financing, and as you noted, the Minneapolis City Council last Friday approved the Minneapolis Stadium Implementation Committee's recommendations on stadium design. So one area where we felt where we might have some controversy and some confrontation was going to be at City Hall, but what it turned out was that was pretty smooth sailing, as on Friday they approved the design proposal for the stadium. So we're in good shape. The city of Minneapolis, we're in good shape in the design and construction, and we're confident that we're going to get this thing delivered on time and on budget, and it's going to be a great stadium for Viking fans and all Minnesotans.
Excellent. I was going to ask you what the drop-dead date was to get those partnership agreements in place, but it sounds like you're pretty confident they'll be in place in time to keep us on track for 2016.
Yes, they're right at the end of the due diligence review, and they have a special meeting scheduled tomorrow. As far as I know, they're going forward with that, and I think they're going to have their preliminary findings. And as I said, the findings will show that the Wilfs have the ability to meet their obligations. It'll move forward and keep this thing on track and get back to the negotiating table to iron out the last handful of issues that have to be worked out, and break ground in the back, the east side of the dome, the parking lot, break ground there sometime in November. And we're off and running with, and this is our last season at Mall of America Field. Next couple of years at TCF Bank Stadium, where the Gophers play football. And then in 2016, this is on schedule to be open in July of 2016. So our season in August, when the preseason starts, will be the kickoff of Viking football in the new facility.
You mentioned the Mall of America Field, Lester, and what I'm interested in is what is the process for selling the naming rights to the new stadium? And will Mall of America get the first right of refusal since they're the current Minnesota stadium naming rights holder?
Well, the process is that we finish the design, and so we have a specific design including signage and location and what a company would buy by buying the naming rights of the new stadium. And as part of the negotiated agreement with the state, the team negotiated to put in half of the capital construction, $477 million of the $975 million price tag. We agreed to put in half, but what we had to get out of the deal was all Vikings and NFL-related revenues, including naming rights. And naming rights are a team revenue because that's what corporate sponsors buy. They buy the naming rights and they buy the exposure to the NFL, not to the city, not to the stadium, but it's to the millions of eyeballs that watch Viking games every Sunday and through the season. So that's what that was about. In terms of the process, we're getting close on design, our final design that'll go to pricing where what they call is a guaranteed maximum price, which the contractor, Mortensen Construction, will put a stamp on and saying we can guarantee that we'll build this stadium for this price. Once we have the final design, and we're in the next 30 to 60 days, we'll have that. And now that we have the design, we can now go out in the market and talk to sponsors and potential sponsors. The good news in terms of naming rights and really sponsorship opportunities in this market, Minnesota has the most Fortune 500 companies. We have 16 Fortune 500 companies in the U.S. It's got the most per capita in the country. And so there's a lot of great companies like General Mills and 3M and Holiday Companies and Best Buy, and there's a whole host of companies, U.S. Bank, Target, and any one of those would be interested in, and they are interested in, some level of sponsorship agreement. So bottom line on the naming rights is that we are confident that we will have a Minnesota company that will agree to put their name on the stadium, and those conversations are just about to begin in earnest as we finish the design so we can go and show people what they're going to be putting their name on.
Lester, one of the important things during this entire process was the promise of jobs being available to Minnesotans. How many jobs will the stadium construction create for Minnesota workers once the construction on the stadium begins in November?
Yeah, and that's what we're anxious to get to, and that's what this is about to a lot of people. It's economic impact, economic development. There's the jobs issue. There's the fact that this stadium is also already delivered in the promise of being a catalyst for further and future development. Ryan Company is in the process of acquiring the Star Tribune, which is just adjacent to the stadium site, and they're going to build a corporate headquarters there or a couple of office towers for a company that they've since announced that is Wells Fargo, that they're going to put about 5,000 or 6,000 employees to work down there. So the stadium's already delivered on the economic development case that we've made for many years. On the jobs piece, which is what this is all about as well, is that Mortensen Construction estimates that it's about 7,500 construction jobs once we get to the groundbreaking. So we're anxious to get through the due diligence so we can get the contracts nailed down, so we can get to the guaranteed maximum price, and so we can get to the groundbreaking and get to construction so we can put people to work. So 7,500 construction jobs all in over the 30-month period, a little over 2 years, 2.5 years. And then there's about 3,000 ongoing jobs that are going to be supported through the development of this facility, and that doesn't count the new events that are going to come in, like the Super Bowl, the NCAA Final Four, and some of those major events that will deliver revenue and economic impact to our community, our region, and our state.
I'll tell you the thing that's nice, not only about the 7,500 jobs plus the 3,000 that will be more permanent when the stadium construction is over, it's really nice to think about the other perspective, which a lot of people don't, is those other businesses now that you're attracting that you mentioned, so that's even more jobs for the Twin Cities economy.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, that Ryan Company's project is a huge one, buying 5 blocks, and of the 5 blocks, one block would be a parking structure, 2 blocks would be a high-rise where they would put those 5,000 to 6,000 employees, and 2 blocks would be a park, would be green space, which is also a great thing to add to a thriving community. And, there's no doubt there are some challenges with having an urban stadium site. This stadium site is one of the most urban sites in the NFL. A lot of NFL teams have suburban sites or on the edge of town, but this one is right off the core of our downtown in Minneapolis, and so the downside is potentially some traffic congestion and lack of parking for our fans, but that's countered by the fact that we got light rail transit that stops at the doorstep of the stadium, as well as this other development that's going to occur that's already being moving forward with this Ryan Company's Wells Fargo project. But there are others. There's conversations going on all around the stadium site about future developments that's going to really change the face of this part of downtown and transform it. So one's great for Viking fans and Minnesotans who are going to go to this building for a variety of events, but it's also great for the economy and the folks that live and work and invest in this part of our community.